Hello, my name is Allison Jones, and today I want to introduce you to my communication audit. Now, at first, I was kind of leery about doing this project because I never heard of a communication audit and I didn't know what to expect. And I don't know, I just felt like maybe it might be a hard assignment. But I'm actually really happy that I did the assignment. I learned a lot from it. And let's hear about what I got from it. All right. So I actually interviewed an organization. The organization is a sports center. The organization is called Knuckle Up. It's located in the north side of Roswell, Georgia. I chose this organization because first off, my son is a member of the gym there. He's a boxer, and he used the organization to work out and to do other things there. Yes, it is a small business. It's been open for a while. They're currently working on other locations, and the owner is definitely looking into hiring more employees. But for now, yes, it is a small business that is thriving in Roswell, Georgia. Okay. I chose the manager of Knuckle Up because I noticed that when my son was doing a lot of the different activities there, he was really hands-on, and I noticed that he would go from each event, each trainer, and just keep a line of communication open, and never really saw any bad things going on with this level of communication. From the outside looking in, it did look really hands-on and good. So I felt like it would be a good idea to kind of see his angles, which direction he was going with communicating, and how he was able to be consistent, and if on the backside did he need any help with maybe tightening up a few loose ends that maybe I could help him with. So I decided to go with him. Okay. So when I first went in for the interview, we decided that with his schedule and my schedule that we would be able to sit down in the office, which I thought was a good idea because I wanted to build a rapport with him, hands-on, one-on-one, to let him know that the purpose of the audit was to have that communication with me and him, and then him be able to rely on my understanding of the information he was giving me, for him to understand that my perception of his information could be clear and that it was understood, and then I could relay any messages to make sure that any downfalls they might have in the organization as far as communication, I will be able to give them advice on it. Okay, so that face-to-face was very important, and I wanted to have that, and he was able to deliver and us have that hands-on. So I was really happy about that. So we first started the interview with a survey. All right. With the survey, I asked him, I believe it was 5 questions. The survey started from it being on a scale from strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. All right. So I asked him, is the essential information given promptly and on time to complete the company goals? He answered agreed. I also asked him, is word of mouth used more frequently than official sources such as message boards and company emails? He said he agreed. And sometimes he felt like it was neutral, so then he ended up giving his final answer as neutral with that. All right. I also asked, are the lines of communication open on all levels of management for your position? He said he agreed with that. I also asked, are most of the information you receive from management accurate? He said yes, most of his information that he does receive comes from the owner. Underneath that line of contact, he is the head person in charge, and then he expresses any information given then to his employees. Are most of the information you receive from your coworkers accurate? He said yes. Most of the time, the information that he does receive from his employees seem to be accurate. And last but not least, for the survey question, I asked, is communication from other departments consistent and accurate? He said yes. He agreed with that. Now, he never said strongly agreed on any of his answers. He said mostly agreed. One answer was neutral, which is fair. I believe that we have a lot of businesses that can use some changes, but on a scale from 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, he pretty much ended up at a 4, with him agreeing to mostly 4 and then 1 being neutral. So I actually created a chart, a graph, explaining his survey, and 20% being that he was actually, I'll show you. He was actually neutral 20% of his survey, and then 80% he was agreed upon it, as far as the questions that I asked him, which isn't bad. It's pretty fair. I think that's actually pretty good and decent, considering it could be a lot worse. All right. So then after I performed survey, I then went on to have the interview with him. During the interview, he appeared very calm, very alert. He was dressed appropriately for the interview. He appeared to have eye contact the entire time. He was very excited about doing the interview and eager to answer any questions that I asked him. And I try to make him feel very comfortable and make him feel as if he could say and be upfront as much as possible with giving his answers. Okay? So during the interview, we did conduct the interview in his office, like I stated. And he was very insightful and consistent with his answers. So a few questions that I asked him, I wanted to put out there. And then I'm just going to read off some questions, give you a little bit of his answer, and then kind of expand on the interaction we had with him with the questions and the answers. So I asked him, how do you receive information from managers to perform your job effectively? He said, I receive information by email, face-to-face meetings on a regular basis. He did point out that he does like to conduct meetings at least every 2 weeks, just to keep that line of communication open. There's always seeming to be events that's done weekly, sometimes every couple days. So it's very beneficial for them to at least hold out weekly meetings, the minimum every 2 weeks. That's the very minimum because of the kind of events that they hold and how much it takes as far as the team to be involved to get the events handled and taken care of. Okay. Another question that I asked him was, how do you make your meetings informative as a manager? He said, I think the best way to conduct meetings is to allow the employees to feel most comfortable. When having a meeting, I have them face-to-face, one-on-one, and in group settings. Now, I thought this was very interesting, and we also had an open discussion about this. He felt that every one of his employees were different. Some felt most comfortable with one-on-one conversation, group sessions, with some of the other ones because they felt most comfortable being around other people, so they wouldn't feel embarrassed about asking a question, because if one person answered a question or asked a question, they felt comfortable with asking a question too and maybe getting an answer too. Or even another employee might want to be in a group setting because they might not feel comfortable with asking a question and then being in a group setting and another employee asks the question that they might want to ask and then their question gets answered. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I asked him, what is the process that your organization uses to make tasks consistent and reliable? He said, there are goals and deadlines that must be made to see that our clients receive quality support for their workouts. To make tasks consistent and reliable, my team and I have set creative standards and operating procedures for our organization to go by. I thought that was very interesting because with every organization, there's a different set of goals that needs to be written out and established. And I thought it was very interesting that he took the time out to specify his goals with his team and re-identify these goals. He mentioned he re-identifies these goals with his team during meetings each week that he conducts these meetings with his team. All right. And that's just making his team feel reassured that they do have goals and the goals are frontline and to keep the business and organization consistent with deadlines and in focus, that the goals should be priority. So it's good that he establishes those goals and makes it very known what those goals are during every single meeting. All right. This is the last question that I wanted to mention to you that I asked him during the interview, which I thought was like a phenomenal question. And it really identified with him as to the type of manager that he is. And also it identified with me the kind of team that he's leading and the consistency and communication that they have. I asked him, has there been an incident of miscommunication within the team, and how do you resolve miscommunication within your organization? He said, of course, there has been miscommunication countless times. This goes on with all organizations. Of course, they do. To better the level of communication, we find out what the initial issues are and discuss them immediately. This discussion starts with an issue and ends with everyone having the common knowledge about what needs to be done. With respect, miscommunication turns quickly into communication. Everyone plays a part in getting the job completely done efficiently. So that's a mouthful, but ultimately, with miscommunication, with a set of communication being present, miscommunication can no longer be an issue if everyone decides that they want to be on the same page by addressing their issues and trying to work together to solve them. Okay. So after I did the interview, I wanted to just identify with you exactly some things that I felt were important. So during my interview, I had a few findings within my audit, and I wanted to acknowledge those findings and then make you aware of some recommendations to solve these issues, okay? So some findings that I came up with were there are ways the organization can better communicate by relieving the manager from having as much responsibility. I noticed that he was the main person who got all the information. So then on the flip side, he was the main person who ultimately had to give information to the employees. So I felt like maybe we can change some things if he wasn't the main person always receiving the information, okay, from the owner. There are things employees can do to better communicate among each other with manager not being present, okay? Also, I found out that there are ways the manager can orchestrate the different levels of communication through thoroughly while still in his position and allow employees to take some type of initiative. Just because he is a manager and his employees are employees, that does not take away from the fact that they can show a little bit more initiative and do some things to kind of take some things off his back so he's not feeling overwhelmed. Being a manager does not mean that you should be held accountable for being the main source of communication in the organization. Okay, and I just mentioned that. Okay, so for recommendations, I felt like by having an encouraging environment, Mr. Davis should allow his team to take the initiative and be transparent about changes when he is absent. Okay, Mr. Davis should encourage more feedback from his team and clarify roles and responsibilities. I also felt like Mr. Davis should encourage his team to take the message board more serious and to look out for newsletters in his absence to get in detail what events are scheduled, along with important messages that may be delivered once he posts them on the message board. Okay? So overall, like I mentioned, the communication audit was a success. We were able to identify some key things that the team could work on. We're able to find some recommendations as to how they can fix those issues. Also, I like to say that Mr. Davis was on board with everything by trying to facilitate some type of boundaries and allowing his team to show some type of initiative by giving them some responsibility. So overall, I feel like the the communication audit was a success, and I feel really good about it. And I thank Mr. Davis. He was happy to do the audit, and he was also happy to let me know later on down the line as to what the audit did for him, and did it actually help better his organization and their communication techniques. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening, and communication is key. Have a good night.